While we're on the topic of, and we're closing out the private military contractor idea, what do you want to say about that to people that are listening to this, or if they have judgments about private military contractors? Should the U.S. use them? Are other countries around the world using them? How do we understand that?
Yeah, I think if we take the capitals away and just say private military contracting has always happened and will always happen. There will always be situations where X or Y or Z service or needed by the armed forces is being actually supplied by a company, a private company. I mean, that might be maintenance, it might be medical, it might be logistical, it might be this, that, or the other thing. It might be security. And I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Because it's more cost efficient, and that's where the better professionals are, and that's why they do it.
Yeah. I mean, I know that, when famously when the Royal Navy sailed to take on the Bismarck, there were civilians on board the ships, and they were working for a company, and now they're fighting the Bismarck, So they are private military contractors, aren't they?
Okay.
I think then you get into the area, the sort of slightly less well-defined area, whereby the private military contractor is carrying out things which are likely to lead to them being in combat, effectively. So let's say they're armed, they're guarding an embassy, or they're guarding a perimeter camp or something in a place where there is likely to be attack, then they are going to be quite possibly fighting. But then if they're any good, they're going to say, but wait a minute, what we should be doing is sending out patrols, fighting patrols, to dominate the ground around us. Bad soldiers just sit there and wait to be attacked. Good soldiers go out there and try and find the attackers. But now, what are you doing? Now you're not a guard. Now you are a soldier. And at that point, I think that it's far better if that is carried out by people who are actually enrolled in the armed forces.
Why?
Morally.
Because they're dying for a reason.
It's not so much that. It's what is the basis of your actions?
Right.
Because, I mean, I can tell you that the business requirements of profit do not mix well with military decision making. Okay? So do we have 4 helicopters or do we have 3? Now, we all know, sitting around the group, we ought to have 4. Because the mathematics are such that we need 4. Because if one's broken, one is on a mission, blah, 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 we need a 4th in case we're going to have to CASEVAC somebody. That is the life-saving helicopter. But we can get away with 3. Now, if the cost of the 4th helicopter is coming straight out of your pocket, what are you going to do? You see what I mean? And
yeah.
So all sorts of, I mean, that's probably not even that great an example, but I mean, all sorts of decisions, military decisions, are going to be made with the profit factor being imposed, which is dangerous. It is dangerous. And you shoot somebody, what's the moral basis for that? Is that murder? Or isn't it? Now, if you're under the rules and regulations of the American Army or the British Army, then you might have murdered somebody.
Right. There's rules of engagement.
There are rules of engagement, but that whole machine that you're in comes with the moral authority of a democratic government. And I personally think that, and so people say to me, well, wait a minute, you started executive outcomes. You went and did what you did in Angola and then what you did in Sierra Leone. How can you possibly sit here and say, oh no, much better if... And I say, well, because it's like, and not everyone likes this analogy, but if I'm walking along the road and there's a house on fire, I feel, well, okay, let's put the house out. That's terrible. And if the guy comes running out and says, help, say, okay, well, we'll help. But that's a hell of a big fire. I'm going to have to get some of my men and equipment in to help put out the fire. Will you pay us? Yes, 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 quickly, the house is on fire. Okay, guys, job here. Now, great. We put the fire out, we get paid, great. None of that means that I don't think it's much better if the municipality have a proper fire brigade. Where's the fire brigade? And in Angola and Sierra Leone, where was the fire brigade? The fire brigade was meant to be the United Nations, and in both cases, they were absolutely useless. And this is where Eric Prince and I do agree.
On what?
Well, we did what needed doing when nobody else was doing it, and we did it very well and at almost no cost compared with a Western government doing it.
Right. And this is referring to the work Blackwater did, probably in Baghdad, protecting personnel.
I'm more referring to Eric talking about, for example, his proposal for Afghanistan.
Okay. O2.
When he is very specifically saying, look, we can do this job and we're going to cost far less and we'll be more effective. Now, I would actually disagree with that part because I'd be saying, no, wait, are you really saying that we can't, as a country, use our armed forces properly? That we have to go and hire people to do what, because this is what the armed forces are for. But in the case of Angola and Sierra Leone, the fire brigade was actually sort of sitting on their asses, eating meatballs or whatever they do. The Swedish contingent of the UN in Angola. I mean, the UN is invariably, whenever you see them, it's a huge exercise in self-administration.
So they don't do anything.
They don't do it.
Right. And you offered a service to get the job done, and no one else could do it.
And we did it.
And you did it, and you...
And the UN complained, reported us, and then asked for a lift down to Joburg for the weekend.
True story?
Which we gave them, of course.
Because they're the UN.
Well, no, it's just, we're too nice. But,
and
so I think that, when it comes to actual soldiering, then I think it's much better if it is the state that does it. And I think that saying, oh, well, we can do it better is ridiculous. We must be able to do it at least as well as a private outfit, surely.
I don't know, maybe if the private outfit is motivated by money and streamlined by that and not bureaucracies, maybe in the future they can do it better. But I know the moral conflicts.
I think that's, okay, as a British soldier, I'd say, I think that's just ridiculous. We must be able to do at least as well.
Okay, and I understand that.
But there is also another element here,
Yeah.
which I'd like to bring out.
Please.
Which is this, that if you have, okay, let's take the view and go with Eric and say, right, he can set up a company and he can go in and do a job with ex-Special Forces guys, and it's going to be cheaper and better done than if the actual Special Forces do it. Okay? But where is he going to recruit the guys from? And where will he recruit the next generation of guys? Because he's going to say, well, okay, we need to hire everyone who's just left. But why are they good? Because they're experienced. So if you're going to go and do the next job, you're not training people, you're not recruiting, you're not taking an 18-year-old, put him into the United States Marine Corps, put him through 5 years in the USMC, and then making a SEAL out of him. And 10 years later, he is the unbelievable product that he is. And then Eric comes and hires him. Now, if I'm the taxpayer, I'm saying, wait a minute, those were my tax dollars that paid for those 15 years of that guy. And now Eric's going to hire him and then send me the bill.
You make a point there, yeah. So it's not sustainable, and also it's not cost effective if you look at the bigger cost. Okay.
Yeah, and I just think it's fundamentally skew with.
Yeah.
And so when I get asked now, which I do get asked by people in Africa, and they say, well, what would you suggest? I'd say, because they are dead anti the PMC model now. And they're very cautious when they talk to me about it. And I say, well, firstly, I think the PMC model is not the right one. And they go, oh, really? Good. What is the right one? Because, the whole Iraq invasion and the whole PMC following that, and then all the subsequent things that have happened in Afghanistan and some things in Somalia, Puntland, PMCs have become a bit like drones. You mention the word, and a lot of developing world countries just go, oh no, we don't want that. And I think there's a better model as well. I think that you can, because it's actually all about having a really experienced, effective group at the core of a national army in an undeveloped country, and perhaps rather a chaotic one. And you can do that by using a kind of, let's call it a French Foreign Legion model. So if we take a random country, let's say Nigeria, why can't Nigeria have a Foreign Legion as part of its armed forces? I mean, the French do. The British have the Gurkhas. And build within your own armed forces this very select, very, very capable group which has everything it needs organically and which can be the tip of the spear, basically.
Okay. So like an internal PMC that's aligned with the values of the country and not paid.
And is a part of the armed forces. It's genuinely a part.
Okay.
It's not like me turning up in Angola
Right.
as General Mann. It's actually really a part of we were actually part of the Angolan armed forces.
Right.
In a pretty genuine way.